Hello students, in this video we are going to study our next chapter, that is chapter number 12. The chapter name is Reproduction in Plants. Class 7, Subject Science, NCERT. In this chapter we are going to study about sexual and asexual reproduction in plants. Then after we are going to identify the different parts of the plants like flowers, fruits, seeds from their functions and structure. We are going to study the different modes of reproduction in plants, then after fruits and seed formation in plants and seed dispersal of plants. So now let me start about the chapter number 12, reproduction in plants. So to reproduce its kind is a characteristics of all living organism. In class 6, we had already learned that living organisms possesses or they contain some characteristics. So like they require food, then after they respire, they excrete, and one of those characteristics, one characteristic is also that they can reproduce their own kind. So it is their property, and the reproduction of new individual or production of new individuals from their parents is known as the reproduction. So this is the definition of reproduction. The production of new individuals from their parents is known as the reproduction. But now the question is that how do the plants reproduce? So there are different modes of reproduction in plants, and about those different modes of reproduction in plants we are going to study in this chapter. So first let we see the different modes of reproduction. So in class 6 you have learned that the different parts of a flowering plant. You learn about the different parts of the flowering plant. So now try to list out some various parts of the plant and also recall the functions of the different parts of the plant. So in that we had seen that most plants have roots, stems and leaves. So these parts of the plants are known as the vegetative parts of the plant. Roots, stems and leaves are known as the vegetative parts of the plants. And after a certain period of growth, most plants bear the flowers. We know that after certain period of growth or after some time period, the plants bear the flowers. The flowers starts coming in on that plant, and you may have seen the mango trees flowering in the spring. So that means after the certain period of time or after certain period of their growth, this tree starts flowering, and it's flowering in the season of spring. So it is this flower that gives rise to the juicy mango fruit we enjoy in the summer. And from these flowers, the mango fruit, it will grow into the mango fruit which we are enjoying in the summer. And we eat the fruits and usually discard the seeds. After getting this fruit from the flowers, we are eating the fruits, and then after we are removing, or you can say discarding or throwing these seeds, again these seeds germinate and they forms the new plants. So this is how the new plants forms. Once seed grow further into the plant, then after trees it bears the flowers. From the flowers it will turn into the fruits, and from the fruits we are getting the seeds. After eating the fruits we are throwing or we are discarding the seeds, and again from these seeds the new plant can grow. So what is the function of flower now in the plants? So flower performs the function of reproduction in the plants, and that's why it is known as the reproductive parts of the plant. The flowers are known as the reproductive parts of the plants because they perform the function of reproduction. Other than that, the roots, stems and leaves are known as the vegetative parts of the plants. So now there are several ways by which these plants produce their offspring. That means they can produce their own kind. So these are categorized, or this is classified into two types, that is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. The different mode of reproduction in plants, it can be classified into two groups, that is sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, plants can give rise to new young plant without the seeds. In asexual reproduction, plants can give or it can give rise to new young plant without the help of seed. Whereas in sexual reproduction, new plants are obtained from the seeds. So this is the difference between the sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction, that in asexual reproduction the seeds are not necessary for the reproduction, whereas in sexual reproduction the seeds are necessary for the reproduction. Now Paheli thought that new plants always grow from seeds, but she has never seen the seeds of sugarcane, potato, rose. So she wants to know how these plants reproduce. So these plants are reproduced by the other parts of the plants, like say vegetative parts of the plants. So to study about that, the next topic is given to you here in the chapter, that is asexual reproduction. So now let me see the first mode of reproduction in plants, that is asexual reproduction. So in asexual reproduction, new plants are obtained without production of seeds. As we had seen previously, in the asexual reproduction, new plants are obtained without the production of seeds, or seeds are not necessary in this kind of reproduction. So now let me see the different parts, or you can say different types of asexual reproduction. So in that, first is vegetative propagation. So it is the type of asexual reproduction in which new plants are produced from the roots, stems, leaves and buds. That means the new plant is produced from the vegetative part of the plant, that is roots, stems, leaves and buds. Since the reproduction is through the vegetative parts of the plant, it is known as the vegetative propagation. So this is first type of reproduction, that is vegetative propagation. In this, the new plant is produced from the vegetative parts of the plants, that is roots, stems, leaves and buds. Here one activity is given to you to show this vegetative propagation in the plants. For that you have to cut the branch of rose or champa plant with a nod. Nod, you will see what is nod. So this piece of branch is termed as the cutting. By cutting the branch of rose or champa with the nod, that piece of branch is known as the cutting. Then after you have to bury this cutting in the soil. And now what is nod? So a nod is the part of a plant of the stem or branch at which the leaf arises. From which the leaf arises, that part of the plant or you can say stem or branch is known as the node. So you have to cut the branch of a rose or champa which contains the node, and then after you have to bury this piece or you can say cutting in this soil. Then after you have to water the cutting every day, and then you have to observe its growth, what is the growth in that plant, and observe and record the number of days which is taken for roots to come out and new leaves to arise. Then after you have to record the observation, how many days it took to the roots to come out and new leaves to arise. And then try the same activity by growing the money plant in a jar of water, and then you record your observation. Here in the figure you can see the node from which, or the part of a stem or branch from which the leaves arises. Here in the middle you can see the bud in the axil. Axil, that means the point of attachment of the leaf, that means from where the leaves are attached to each other. So that part is known as the axil, and between this axil the buds are also present. So if you will perform this activity, you will observe that new plant develop from the growth of buried cutting which we had buried. And a new plant we can say that can be obtained from the stem by vegetative reproduction. Here in the reproduction, we had used the stem of the plant to grow a new young plant. So this is vegetative reproduction, in which we use the stem as the vegetative part. So you must have seen the flower buds which is developing into the flowers. We know about one bird, that is flower birds. So the flower buds further develop, or it will grow into the flowers. Now apart from these flower buds, other kinds of buds are also present in the axil of the leaves, which develops into the shoots. We had seen what is axil. So axil, that is the point where all the leaves are attached to each other. So in that axil, center of the axil, the bud is also there. In the figure we had seen, and from that bud it is further develop into these shoots. That means from there the leaves will develop. So these buds are also called the vegetative buds. And the bud, which consists of a short stem around which the immature overlapping leaves are also present. This kind of buds, it consists of a short stem, and around that the immature leaves are there, which are overlapped on each other. So this is about the bud as the vegetative propagative part. Vegetative buds can also give rise to new plants. This kind of vegetative buds can give a rise to the new young plants. So this is the vegetative propagation. Now next, here another activity is given to you. For that you have to take a fresh potato, then after observe the scars on it with the help of a magnifying glass. Scars, that means marks on the potato. With the help of the magnifying glass, you have to observe the scars on the potato. You may find the birds on them also. So these scars are called the eyes of the potato. Then after they cut the potatoes into the small portions, and each part should contain the eye, and then after bury these pieces in the soil and water these pieces regularly for the few days, and then after you have to observe the progress and you have to say what you will find. Here you can see the scars on the potato, and these are the birds on the potato. So potato plant sprouting from an eye, this is known as the sprout, from where it is growing or new young plant is growing. So if you will perform this activity, you will find that sprouting plant can be seen from the eye of the potato, and new plant is also produced from the bud by the vegetative reproduction or vegetative propagation. So in that first activity we had seen that we can grow a new young plant from the stem, and in the second activity we had seen that we can grow new young plant from the eye or from the bud of the plant. So likewise, this potato, you can also grow ginger or turmeric also. Here in the picture, the ginger is shown to you. The eyes and buds on the ginger is also shown to you. So like potato, you can also grow the ginger and turmeric. So next is now bryophyllum. That means it is also known as the sprout leaf plant. Bryophyllum. Bryophyllum, it is also known as the sprout leaf plant. That means this kind of plant's leaf are sprouted, or they has the sprouts. So it has the buds in their margin of the leaves. We can say in the corners of the leaves they had the buds, and if the leaf of this plant falls on the moist soil, then each bud can give the rise to a new young plant. Here in the picture it is shown to you leaf of the bryophyllum with the buds on the margin. Here on the leaves you can see the buds are there, so from there new young plant can grow. So when this kind of leaf of the plant falls on the soil with a suitable environment, from this each bud it can give a rise to the new young plant. So this is the vegetative propagation. Roots of some, other than that, roots of some plants can also give the rise to new young plants, like sweet potatoes and dahlia are the example of such kind of plants. The plants such as cacti, another example is such as cacti produce new plants where their parts get detached from the main plant body. If the some part of the cacti plant it get detached from the main plant body, then after from that only or from those all the parts of the plant, the new young plant or new cacti young plant can grow. So each detached part can grow into a new young plant or new plant. So this is the different parts of the plant or different vegetative parts of the plants from which the new plant can grow. So now Bujo want to know if there is any advantage of this kind of vegetative propagation. So here the answer is given to you. What are the advantages of such kind of vegetative propagation or the reproduction using the stems, buds, roots, leaves of the plants? So plants which produce by the vegetative propagation, they take the less time to grow and they bear flowers and fruits earlier than those produced from the seeds. As compared to the plants which grow from the seeds, this kind of plants which produce by the vegetative propagation, they take the less time to grow and they in shorter time they can bear the flowers and fruits. So this is the one advantage of vegetative propagation over the plants which are produced from the seeds. Next is the new plants are exact copies of the parent plants as they are produced from the single parent. So they are the exact copy of their parentive plant. So this is the another example of plants which are produced by the vegetative propagation. Next is later in this chapter you will learn that plants produced by sexual reproduction have characters of both parents, and the plants produce seeds as a result of sexual reproduction. That is about sexual reproduction we will study later on in this chapter. Here so our first part, that is vegetative propagation, it gets over. Now next another method of asexual reproduction is budding. So now let we see about the another method of asexual reproduction, budding. So you have already learned about the tiny organisms like yeast. This can be seen only under the microscope, and this grow and multiply after every few hours if sufficient nutrients are made available to them. So this is about single cell organism, that is yeast, and we can see them through the microscope only, and this grow and multiplies in a fewer time, or you can say in few hours, if the sufficient amount of nutrients are available to them. So remember that yeast is a single cell organism, and now let we see how they reproduce. So for that, next activity is given here, that is activity number 12.3. So for that we require a piece of yeast cake or yeast powder from the bakery. You can right now you do not have to try this activity, but this powder can be available in the bakery or as well as in the chemist shop also. Then after we have to take a pinch of yeast, and then we have to place that in the container with some water, which contains some water. Then after we have to add the spoon of the sugar or spoonful of sugar, and then we have to shake that mixture well to dissolve the sugar. And then after we have to keep them in a warm part of the room or warm area. After an hour we have to put a drop of this liquid on a glass slide, and then we have to observe that glass slide in the microscope. So what do you observe, that you have to say, but here in the figure it is given to you what we can observe after performing this activity. And you may also see the formation of new yeast cell. Like here it is shown to you. After performing this activity we can observe that the formation of new yeast cells, and in some of the yeast cells small bulb like projections are seen, or small bulb like structure is seen, and the yeast reproduced by budding, and small bulb like projection on the yeast cell is the bulb. Here you can see that the yeast cell is there. Now from the yeast cell the bud is formed slowly, and then after this new bud, here you can see from this new bud again the sum of the buds or chain of the buds form, and after that this each bud it starts acting as an individual. So from the one yeast cell number of yeast can reproduce. So now let me see the small bulb like projection which we had seen in the figure or structure, which is coming out from the yeast cell, is known as the bud. And this bud gradually grows or slowly grows, and then after it gets deattached or it is separated from the parent cell, and it forms the new yeast cell. So the new yeast cell grows and mature, and it produces more such kind of yeast cell. And sometimes what happens, the another bud also arises from the bud, forming a chain of buds, which we had seen in the figure, that from one bud the another chain of buds is also starts forming. So if this process continues, or continue for this some time. Then after, a large number of yeast cells can also be produced in a short time. So this is why the yeast can produce in a, or it can multiply after every few hours. So this is the method of reproduction in the yeast by the method which is known as the budding. Now next asexual reproductive method is fermentation. Fragmentation, not fermentation, it's a fragmentation. So now let me see about the fragmentation. So you might have seen slimy green patches on the pond. In the pond, slimy, that means thin green patches on the pond, or in the other stagnant area, water bodies. Stagnant water bodies, that means in which the water is stable, water is not moving. So in such kind of water bodies you will find the thin green patches. So these are known as the algae. So when this algae gets the water and nutrients, so when this water and nutrients are available to the algae, it starts growing and it multiplies rapidly by the process known as the fragmentation. So the method of reproduction in algae is the fragmentation. Now what is there in this method? So an alga breaks up into 2 or more fragments, or you can say 2 or more parts, and this each part or each species, or you can say each fragments, grow into a new individual. So this process continues and they cover a larger area in the short time period. Here you can see the fragmentation in alga or in Spirogyra. So here you can see that one single organism is there, and after the fragmentation it will divide it into 2 or more than 2 pieces or more than 2 fragments, and then after this each piece will start acting as an individual. So this is how the new individual forms in the alga, or this is the another method of asexual reproduction, that is fragmentation. Now next method of asexual reproduction is spore formation. So in chapter number 1 you have learned that the fungi on a bread pieces grow from spores which are present in the air. In the activity we first 1.2, in the first chapter we had seen that we had taken the one bread, and then after we had moistened, or we had sprinkled some water on that bread, and then after we put that piece of bread into warm condition or warm environment for 3 to 4 days, and then after we had observed the fluffy patches on that bread. So we had seen that those are the spores on that bread. So we had seen from that activity that fungi on a bread piece grows from the spores. Now spores, we had already seen that it is the biological structure which are tiny particles, or you can say small particles, and from that the new parts of the plants can, or new plant can also grow. So now here you have to repeat that activity again which we had performed with the piece of bread. And then we have to observe the spores in the cotton like mesh on the bread. We have to observe the spores, that means these tiny particles which are present on the cotton like structure or fluffy structure, and when these spores are released they keep floating in the air. Here in the figure it is shown to you sporangium, that means in which the spores are scattered or distributed, and then after when it bursts the spores are released. Here you can see the spores are in tiny these are the tiny particles, biological particles from which or by which the new plant can also grow, and these are very light in weight, so they can easily float in the air. Here you can see the hyphae is there. These are the different parts of the fungi. So reproduction through the spore formation in the fungus. So now let we see about spores. So as we see, the spores are the tiny particles, and they are light in weight, so they can easily float in the air and they can cover a long distance. So spores are asexual reproductive bodies, and each spore is covered by a hard protective coat, or you can see they are covered with the hard protective layer to withstand the unfavorable or unsuitable conditions like high temperature, then after low humidity. So to sustain in such kind of conditions, they had the hard protective layer, so they can survive for a long time under the now after they once they get the favorable conditions, so or you can say suitable conditions. So under such kind of condition, the spores germinates and develops into a new individual. So this is how in the fungus the new individual can grow. So plants such as moss and ferns also reproduce by the means of spores or by the spore formation. So this is the another method of asexual reproduction. Here in the figure it is shown to you the reproduction through the spore formation in these ferns. So the plants like ferns also reproduce by the spore formation. Here in the plant you can see the below the leaves you can see the sori, that is spore forming the bodies. This part of the plant forms the spore, and through the spores new plant can grow. So this is the part of the fern plant. So here the first mode of reproduction, that is asexual reproduction, gets over. In the next video we will study the next mode of reproduction, that is sexual reproduction. So in this video till now we had seen that reproduction. What is reproduction? In that we had seen the production of new individual from their parents is known as the reproduction. Then after we had seen that there are two modes of reproduction in plants, that is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction we had seen that the plants can give rise to new plants without seeds, whereas in sexual reproduction new plants are obtained from the seeds. That means in sexual reproduction seeds are required, and in asexual reproduction seeds are not required. Then after we had seen the about flowering plant, in that we had seen vegetative parts of the plants, that is roots, stem and leaves are the vegetative parts of the plant, and flowers are the reproductive parts of the plants. Then after in asexual reproduction, first we had seen about vegetative reproduction. So in that the new plants are produced from the different vegetative parts such as roots, stem, leaves and buds. Then after we had seen about cutting, so the piece of a branch of stem with a node is known as the cutting, and a new plant is produced from this cutting which is buried in the soil. Like in rose and champa plant, we can form a new plant with this cutting. Then after we had seen about vegetative buds, so there are buds in the axil of leaves which develops into shoots which is known as the vegetative buds. Then after we had seen that sweet potato and dahlia, it sprouts a root plant, that means they can grow in from the roots also. Then after we had seen about potato and ginger, so they are the sprout stem plant, and then we had seen birophyllum which is the sprout leaf plant, that means from the leaf also the new plant can grow. Then after we had seen about different modes of asexual reproduction, that is budding. In that we had seen example of yeast. In the fragmentation we had seen example of spirogyra, and in the spore formation we had seen example of fungi or fern. In fern the spore forming bodies are called as the sori. So these are the different modes of asexual reproduction or different methods in asexual reproduction in the plants. The remaining parts of the chapter we will study in the next video. Thank you.